Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with me, Jerry D. Today is a special episode. I've said that every week because it's true. Every episode is different. It covers a different topic, a different reality to bring hope to every one of our listeners that listen. But today's podcast episode is entitled Men Listen Up. And I suppose the title in and of itself, it can come across as judgmental or whatever. That's not the heart. I think you'll hear the heart behind the title as we dive into some of the topics surrounding specifically the topic of dating and what that looks like. And I've got two wonderful guests. My sister Emma is a returning guest, so she's now an OG on the Hope Sessions podcast. But we've also got her good friend Patricia, who is on. So girls, it is my great honor to have you both on the podcast episode. First and foremost, thank you for giving up of your evening, whether it's an hour or whatever, to come on and just talk and be a blessing to me, as you always have been, and also a blessing and a help to the guys and everyone that's going to listen to this podcast. How are you both doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Patricia?
Yeah, I'm doing good as well. Thank you for having us and I suppose giving us an opportunity to share.
Yeah.
And yeah, we both hope that the conversations that we can have can be, glorifying God in ways and that they hopefully will be helpful and to people. Yeah.
Sounds good. Girls, this is the Hope Sessions podcast. And yes, today's episode is on the topic of men listen up, right? But before we get into the questions and the dialogue, I know you both because I serve with you both in youth ministry. And Emma, I get to wreck your head every day of the week for the last 25 years of my life, which is an honor in and of itself. But I know your stories because I've heard you both share your stories in conversations with people, and I've heard it through different mediums. But maybe our listeners don't know your story. So would you both, for the next 3 to 5 minutes each, or however long you feel, share your story?
Yeah, perfect.
Do you want to go, Patricia?
Yeah, I can go first. So stop me now if I go over the 5 minutes.
No problem.
I'll try not to. But I suppose, like, as many people, I grew up in a Christian family. I was one of those kids that was asleep like under chairs in meeting halls and stuff like that when I was really young. But then things kind of changed over the years. My whole family moved here and we became quite religious in some ways, and we were going to a church in Cork, which it actually doesn't exist anymore. But at the time, me and my brother, we didn't speak the language or anything. We absolutely hated it. We thought it was the most boring place we could be every Sunday. We were the only children there. I'm pretty sure they made us watch that movie that you watched as a kid in church.
Is it VeggieTales?
Yeah, we watch VeggieTales every Sunday upstairs. We didn't even understand VeggieTales. And I guess we've always we gave out about it, and it's a fight that we won over time with our parents because they were getting used to the culture as well. They didn't understand everything either, so it was kind of okay, we just won't go anymore. They read their Bible at home, do their own thing, and we became quite religious that way. And there was quite a bit of sin that came into the house and stuff like that. And growing up, I was the worst teenager you could dream of having. People look at me now and they're like, that's no way true. But just to give you an example, when I was doing my junior cert, my parents had to pick me up from the police station before, and stuff like that, things you'd never think of me, to the point where they didn't know what to do with me at all. They were just we don't know what to do. So they were okay, we'll start going to church again. So we went to a church for quite some years, and again, nothing really changed. It was still very religious. We went to church on Sundays. There was things oh, don't do this, don't do that. But no one really invested in me during that time. And in my 18, when I was 18, 20, I lived a very double life. Because I went to church every Sunday, and a big motivation of that was because I lived out of home and my dad took me food shopping after church. So I went to church and I would bawl my eyes out and stuff. But I would forget about it then the next day. It was really difficult to commit to the point where I was like, it's actually impossible. But then I always knew that God was real. Like, it was always in the back of my head. So even when I did things that were wrong, I was like, oh, like, it's fine because I know better. Like, unless like the people in my life didn't, but I did. So like, there's always something to come back to, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then like, it was always in my head that like, yeah, I will commit, just not now. Like, I need more time and stuff like that. And then like, I got to the stage where I was like so far gone. And I had like many things that people would be happy with. Like, I graduated from college. I lived out of home. I was financially stable, and like, my life was so empty that I was like, if this is it, like, I actually don't want to live, because it's like so bad.
Yeah.
And I prayed this prayer to God, being like, I will commit to you, but like, you need to take me out of this circle. Like, I can't do it here. Like, I can't, like, there's going to be people that will like laugh at me and stuff like that. I was like, I just can't, I can't commit to you here.
Yeah.
And I never like shared this with anyone. But then my mom, she sent me an email, and she only emails me when she wants to send me something that's on the computer, because she wouldn't know how to send it on my phone. And she emailed me a link to like Logos Hope, which is a ministry that shares knowledge, help, and hope around the world. That's a very short part of it. And I didn't even tell her, but I applied. Like, I applied to go, like, no idea what I was getting myself into. And like, if you look on the requirements to go and stuff, like, I didn't meet any of them, like, absolutely nothing. Like, you need to be like a missionary, you should be part of a church, you need like people to pray for you, like support. Like, I didn't meet any requirements. And yet, like, God opened so many doors. It was the easiest thing I've done.
Yeah.
And like, one that looked just so impossible on the outside. Like, I had nothing, like, I had no talents, no nothing. Like, I was so broken. And like, the only thing, I finished early childhood education, and they needed preschool teachers. And like, I needed a letter from my church. Like, I got baptized to go, like, not having a clue what I was doing. Like, it was just, God opened so many doors that were just so impossible, like, looking back at it. And like, I got there, and again, like, people were so gracious to me. Like, I gave my life to the Lord. I had prayer partners. I had people that really invested in me, families that invested in me and discipled me. And I put my head down, and I worked for the Lord 6 days a week. You know, I made friendships, and I guess then, you know, my stories from just serving at the church here when I came back. Just another thing that I will share is, like, during that time when I went away, my whole family got saved. Like, everyone, like, my parents dedicated their life to God again. My brother and his wife got saved. His wife never went to church. My sister and her husband got saved. Like, God has done just such incredible work in our life since. Like, when I came back, it's like my family was like just people like so different, and you could really just feel that. So yeah, that's my story, really. There's so many things I could go on to tell, but I think my 5 minutes are up. So
Oh, that's all good. That's awesome. I always find when I hear people's stories, you know, there's when you hear the layers of, I suppose, the journey of the life they've had, and then I'm sitting here listening, and you started off with I suppose your chaotic teenage years or whatever you want to call it, and then you look back now, and it's the hand of God literally all over every aspect of your life, and you didn't see it at the time because none of us do. You're just a day by day, it's like whatever. But then you look back and you realize it was all ordained of the Lord, because everything that you've gone through now, He's now using in your life to minister to the young people of our church, the friends that you're with, you know. So thank God for that. He actually puts everything to use that we go through for the glory of God and for the souls of men, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Emma, I think I know you by now. If I don't, these questions to ask. You share your story with me again and the listeners origin story?
Yeah, so obviously I didn't grow up as a Christian. We grew up in a Catholic background. So obviously we went to mass like every Saturday night. We always used to go with Nanny. And we used to like made our communion, our confirmation, all that. Like we had such like thankfully we all had like such loving parents. Like we grew up in a good home, do you know what I mean, loving parents and all that. And then we were born in England. We moved over when I was 6 because granddad was passing away, so we had to move over. And then I suppose when we were in Kildare, I just vaguely remember we moved over, just kind of, things kind of started going south, if you say. I remember, kind of mom and dad would always kind of be arguing and, in the house, and the kind of things started kind of getting a bit tough. But I think they tried to hide it from us. And I think then just as time kind of went on, then we kind of started to see that things weren't kind of right in the home and whatever. And we'd always go and stay in Nanny's house on a Saturday night. And, we're just always in Nanny's for weekends. And we were always wondering, like, what's going on? And then, like, down the line, then we realized that Danny, like our older brother, would have been kind of got involved in drugs and things like that. So that brought a lot of kind of hurt to the home, a lot of kind of fighting and things like that. But looking back at it now, like, God had his hand on all of our family. And like, I thank God for that, because like I remember like when obviously we're in Kildare, then we moved to Wexford. Like I remember I seen mom like physically getting a knife held up to her. And I remember I was like, I think I was 11 or 12. And I remember that, like, because obviously, Danny owed money and whatever. And I remember a drug dealer coming to the house and just to think that, like, God, even though we didn't believe in God then, but looking back on it now, we're like, wow, like God literally had his hand on our family, And then Danny went to rehab. It's called Teen Challenge, so it's a Christian rehab. And we wouldn't have had a good relationship with Danny, whatever, because whatever, he brought to the home and whatever. And then I remember when Danny went to rehab and he would send us letters, like writing to us about Jesus and writing to us about like the Bible and things like that. And just saying, like, Jesus loves you, Jesus died for you, you need to repent, and, like he forgives you. And then I remember then, it really shook me when Danny, in one of Danny's letters, he wrote to us, to me anyway, and he said that, he's like, I hope you can forgive me. And I was like, forgive you? I was like, I'm not going to forgive you, like, ever. Because I remember, like, Danny used to, like, sell all of our, like, PlayStations, all of our Game Boys, all of our phones, used to just take them. I was like, I'm not forgiving you for that. But I remember then the Lord then literally started doing the work on my heart. I remember our first time ever going up to visit Danny in the rehab centre. And I went in and I could just see there was a light on him. And I literally just went over and gave him a hug. And it was from there then that the Lord started to kind of do work in my heart. And then I got a Bible, and, Danny, you were helping with the Bible and things like that, just kind of open up scripture and, just kind of invested in the word and whatever. And then Danny came home for the weekend and me to find a Christian church. And I remember my first time ever going into a Christian church in Wexford, I literally was like, this is actually crazy. Like everyone's jumping around and clapping, but I couldn't stop crying. And then I was like, why am I crying? Like, I've never felt emotion like that before in my life, just kept weeping and weeping and weeping and weeping. And I didn't know, as time went on, I didn't know what it was. And then I remember then I went and talked to the pastor about it. And the pastor, Paul, said to me, he said, that's the Holy Spirit, like doing knocking down walls and doing a work in you. And I just remember from that day then, like, so I just surrendered to the Lord and just gave my heart to the Lord. And like, obviously the Christian life isn't easy. We all know that. So obviously I went on my own journey. And then obviously I finished school, and then I kind of, like Patricia was saying, kind of living 2 lives. Like I kind of was going out drinking and smoking and doing this and doing that. And then I came to the end of myself then, and I was like, I can't have my foot here, my foot there. It's like I'm either all in or I'm not all in. But I was like, I want to serve somebody and I want to like get into heaven. So I was like, you know what? And then I just remember just then we went to Summer Fire, and it was Summer Fire that I just completely turned my life around. And then like Patricia was saying, even that she wanted the Lord to take her out. Like, she's like, I'll serve you, Lord, but like, I can't serve you here. That was my heart. I was like, I want to serve you, Lord, but I can't serve you in Wexford because all my friends who I grew up with, who I'd done things with, I can't, like, I need to be moved out of it. I remember coming home from the Summer Fire conference and letting mom and dad know, like, look, I want to change my life. Like, I want to do something meaningful. Like, I want to serve the Lord, but I don't know what that looks like yet. And then I remember mom was like, pray about it. And then my dad was like, it's fine. He goes, you'll be fine. I remember dad saying to me, just keep working. He was like, if you keep working, keep busy here. He said, you're fine. He's like, you're not moving. And I remember that broke me because I knew in my heart that the Lord was going to move me somewhere. And I kept praying and praying about it. And then when I told Dad then I wanted to move to Cork, he's like, "You're not moving to Cork." He's like, "No way." He's like, "You're staying here." Remember, he was like, "No." He's like, "You're staying here." And I just kept praying and praying because I believed that the Lord wanted me to come to Cork.
Yeah.
So I just kept praying and praying, and like Dad's heart kept softening. And I remember one time then Dad came to me one morning after when we came home from church, and he was like, "If you really want to move to Cork," he's like, we'll help you and we'll look for you." And I just knew then that the Lord had his hand on all of that, like, and even like with me and you as well, like how the Lord even restored our like relationship as well, because even like growing up, I probably should have said it earlier, but like we actually hated each other, you know, growing up we had so much, I don't know, competition, jealousy, just because we were such like a broken home that like we kind of took it out on each other because we weren't getting the attention from our parents that we should have been getting.
Yeah.
And but like even how the Lord has like restored that, like, and I can actually, like, you're actually my best friend. Like I tell you like pretty much, I probably tell you too much things, to be honest, you know. But
Yeah.
like I'm thankful that the Lord has put that in my life and put you in my life for that. So again, like I probably didn't go from start to finish my testimony, but again, the testimony I have is God kept me and he's going to continue to keep me, and I just want to continue to serve him and love his people. And
Yeah.
my motto is love God, love people. That's my motto. But
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of me. I probably went rambling on, but anyway.
Thought you were gonna sing it. It's love God, love people. That's my motto. You
You
should
should
know by now. But no, thank God, Emma. You know, like I remember, like I've had many conversations with Danny and Mom over the last year or so, and more so Danny because I think I'm probably closer to Danny than probably yourself. I think I'm very close to you in a lot of ways that I'm not close to Danny, and I'm close to Danny in a lot of ways I'm not. You know, there's just a different dynamic in both our relationships. But I'll never forget those days where like we're sitting in the sitting room and I'm watching Man United play football on the telly with David, and then I turn around and the door is just dum 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 dum. And then Dad went out one day with the drug dealers and his car got smashed up and he got beat up on the front lawn.
Yeah.
Or what about another time where Danny ran down to, remember John Delaney's house, which was about 5 or 6 doors down? And when I say didn't beat him, absolutely bet the living daylights out of him, smashed his car, wanted to stab him alive with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Ripped, remember the eyebrow bar? He ripped it out of John's eye and kneed him in the head. I didn't know Danny could fight.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. I knew he could talk all right, but I
Yeah.
didn't know,
Yeah.
you know, and like you were on about forgiving Danny. It's funny because I'm a skinny guy, I always have been. And Danny was skinnier than me. And I used to not have any clothes because Danny used to wear 3 to 4 layers of clothes a day just to keep himself warm because of whatever drugs he was taking. I remember the day when we were in the house and Danny took the horse tranquilizer.
Oh yeah.
And his tongue was just like a balloon, where his jaw was, and I couldn't stop laughing. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And Mom was bawling her eyes out, and I'm like, what a dope! Like his tongue was just inflating, and
And
his
she's like,
tongue,
"Your dad's in the room. Stop! Your dad's in the room." And it's like, "Just be quiet."
yeah,
But
yeah. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways, Mom, she enabled Danny in a lot of ways, which
yeah,
didn't help. But look, that's I believe that
that's
the
just the
Lord
mother
has
care
a
for.
lesson in that for us, you know. And but I love it. I love hearing just what the Lord has done in our family because you know obviously you can share aspects that I didn't know about or whatever. But yeah, now that people have got to know you both, I get the honor of actually being in the same church with you both and just seeing the friendship that you both have, which I think is really what this one is in fact it's the main reason why I've asked you both to come on together, because I see what you both mean to each other, and I know Emma, you've told me many a times, just I suppose just the friend that Patricia has been in a very real sense with the encouragement she's been, how she's available to you when you need to talk to her, which I thank God for that because I know for myself, the older I get, my friendship circle gets smaller because it gets deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, which means that people who are, you know, when you're a teenager, you think you have to be friends with the whole world. When you're an adult, you realize you don't want to be friends with everyone.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and we're going to dive into a topic today. People already know us. Listen up, men. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into some aspects of what I suppose what women are looking for in men, and what you two are going to do is you're going to be used by the Lord in this conversation to help men with some practical steps, some wisdom in this topic. We're going to jump into it. The first one is right, and I heard about this term recently, and I suppose I got convicted of it because I've done it a few times myself, and I've been ghosted many a times, right? But ghosting is a very real thing.
Yeah.
Right. And what do I mean by ghosting for those who don't know? Ghosting is a term where if a guy likes a girl, because we live in a social media world, a guy has more confidence to text a girl and slide into her DMs on Instagram. Hey, how are you? Smiley face, seen you at church today, but I didn't get to talk to you. No, you didn't get to talk to her because you were afraid to talk to her, my man. But Emma and Patricia, have you guys ever experienced being ghosted or ghosting someone else?
Yeah, I would have. Like I suppose like a lot of people can probably relate. Like even for like a church, like a Christian connections, like summer fire.
Yeah.
So when you're at summer fire, and if you see somebody or whatever, and then they text you and be like, "Oh, sorry, I was so busy, caught up doing the Lord's work," and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so yeah, it has happened to me before, but now looking at it, I'm like, don't ghost, don't do it. Been there. I've ghosted people before myself. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna put my hands up and be totally honest. Like I have done it to people, but looking back at it now, I'm like, I wouldn't do it. Just talk to the person in person and just What do you think, Patricia?
Yeah, I'm also probably guilty of doing it, definitely. Because it's just this idea of like, oh, you would never say hi to me in person, but then you're like chancing, like testing the waters by like sending me a DM or whatever. Like, and I'm at an age where I just ignore it. And I'm not saying that's the best thing to do, but it's what I would have done in the past, or that's what I probably would do. But then there is this line of like, ghosting someone that you have messaged back, or like you have put time or to get to know, like, that's not okay then. Like I heard this message before, and it was just like, it was about this topic, and it was like, if you're ghosting someone, like you need the Holy Ghost, and like I know it's hilarious.
Whoa,
but it's actually
holy snap.
It's so true. Like, if you've put time or effort into replying to someone and then you just like disappear, like that's not okay.
It's not cool.
But yeah, like Emma, I've also been guilty of just not replying to something, just not wanting to deal with it, etc. And yeah, I'm not saying it's the best way, but I've done it as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose I want to dig a bit deeper on it just briefly. So someone slides into your DMs, right? And this person has never talked to you in church. They've seen you all the time. They'll probably give you that smile where it's like, but they're too afraid to say, hey, it's good to see you. Welcome to church. If someone who slides into your DMs who you're physically attracted to, are you willing to strike up a conversation with them? Even if they haven't spoken to you in person?
Wait, so repeat that again?
So someone slides into your DMs, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen them or you've heard about them or whatever, but they've never spoken to you in person. Are you willing to not ghost them on that occasion if you're physically attracted to him? If you look at him and go, oh yeah, he's a bit of a Zac Efron, all right.
Zac Efron, that Adrena, not that.
Sorry, Lewis Capaldi. Sorry.
I mean, I probably would text back, like maybe more, but like not get too deep in, because like I feel like if you kind of keep texting, then you keep texting, then you get too shy in person. So I feel like you're just best just to say, hey, how are you? Hope you're doing well. See you in church on Sunday or something like that, and then just talk more in person, because this whole thing of the texting thing, it's not good because it can make you awkward. It's like it's happened to me before in the past. Like I just think just short and simple and conversation and talk in person. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, I think anyone would agree that like being honest, you're probably more open to it if you're attracted to the person. Like, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I remember I know this is a women talking to the men, but I'm gonna talk as a man for a second. I remember someone slid into my DMs last October, and I literally, no joke, very pretty person, not from Cork, so relax, don't go into the analysing stage. You probably don't know who they are.
Was it the both of you if you get? Am I joking?
Not a hope, not on they're teenagers. We're not about that here. But I typed out the message. I was going to respond, smiley face emojis, all that good stuff, but I didn't press send. And just on Friday we went to Avoca for the young adults weekend. This person texted me back, thanks for answering, ! And I'm like, damn, it's 3-4 months on, and like
he's got the guts anyway.
Yeah, and I was like, I looked at it and I didn't respond because I was like, I can't use the I was busy response because I wasn't busy. I seen the text, I responded, I just didn't press send. So I just deleted the message and it just moved on with my life, you know?
That's awkward enough.
Yeah.
So that's on ghosting. So my advice, and I think the girl's advice is very clear. The hardest thing for a guy to do, I'm speaking as a guy because I'm a guy myself, is putting yourself out there because of the fear of rejection. If you like someone, go up and talk to her and say, make a conversation around something that, whether you're in the missions cafe or church, did you enjoy that sermon, or something where you want to get to know the person. But this whole idea of sliding into their DMs, be a man up and talk to the person in person, amen?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, like, you know, people, like, girls really appreciate that. Like, even if you're rejected, there's that level of like respect of like,
yeah.
he actually came up to me,
Yeah,
and he said hi, and he asked me, you know, a specific question.
Yeah.
Like, there, it's like you may say no, and but like you're still kind of, you have so much more respect for that person
Yeah.
for actually trying and doing it in person rather than, you know, sending you a message.
That's it, 100%. I agree.
yeah. Wow. That's, guys, take notes. You want to get a woman's respect, you talk to her in person. Even if she rejects you, you'll gain her respect in Jesus' name. And I suppose I want to ask, right, because I had this conversation with the lads last night, and I enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was very fruitful. So I want to ask you, right? I'm gonna ask two parts: green light or green flags and red flags.
Oh,
So what is a green flag? A green flag is something that is like a cha-ching, yeah, you're in my good book. There's something there that I appreciate that about you. I look for that in a man. That's something that I admire.
yeah.
So we're going to kick it off with green flags. What are some green flags for potential partners that you see and go, yeah, that's a seller for me?
Okay. One for me definitely would be how they treat other people.
Okay.
Like how they kind of treat their friends, how they kind of treat their family, and then also another one would be like leadership, like how they lead and serving.
Yeah.
They're my kind of green flaggies. Flaggies?
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like, just to add, like, you know, like, can you see that they're led by God? Like, is Jesus the center of their life? And
Yeah.
you can see that by the fruit that it produces, you know, and like, those are all the green flags, like, you know, the qualities that they have from that, like leadership, patience, how they treat other people, things like that, wisdom, faithfulness, and like, you know, you can spot that easily in a room.
Like a prayer life as well.
Yeah.
Solid prayer life.
Yeah. Wow. That's I love that, because there's a pastor I listen to, Craig Rochelle. He's the guy, his church created the YouVersion Bible app. He's got a leadership podcast, and he talks about it all the time about how if a man can't lead himself, how is he supposed to lead his home in the future?
Yeah.
Legit, it starts with you first, and it's the same with any leadership position. How are you to lead a group of people if you're not leading yourself first and foremost? You know. So there's some green flags. That's really cool. I like that about how they treat other people, how they lead people, their prayer life. Like, would you not think that like a green flag would be like how they smell? Is smell or fragrance?
Yeah, let's
Okay, yeah, like hygiene, obviously, yeah. But like wasn't sure if like if you would classify that as
like
green.
showering is basics.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would.
And also,
call
I
that
think
a
if they
green
look after
flag.
themselves, like if they get like, you know, if they look after their appearance, if they dress nice, and if they have a good, like, because obviously, like, I'm into the gym and running and all that jazz. So like if they have that kind of, it means that they're looking after themselves and they care about their health, and
So they're basically not going to be a slob.
Yeah,
For
pretty
lack
much.
of a better term.
Pretty
So
much.
we've talked about green flags, but red flags get talked about a lot more. So what are some red flags to you? And to you, it's a massive turn off. It's like, no way, buddy, you can go back to your field. You're not my Boaz.
If they're very immature.
Yeah, like being like flaky, kind of, I guess. Like, you know, you're in church one day, you're not the next.
Yeah. Like you're not committed. Like
you're serving, but you don't want to be there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
You don't shower, that would be a red flag.
Yeah. Stay in bed all day.
Yeah, I think laziness is a big one. It's one people don't like talking about, because we're we all have days where
Oh
we
yeah,
wanna do
absolutely.
that,
Hello, I had
etc.,
that
but,
day
like,
today. Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah.
that's kind of taking over your
Mhm.
life in a way, and you can see that in people as well,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
it would be a red flag.
Yeah.
And I suppose I want to ask this, and I don't even have this in my notes, but just from what I'm thinking, you're two girls, two women, in fact. And do you notice these things? Are they like massive blinker, red flag, ding 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 ding? Can you notice if a guy looks after himself, if he
Oh,
showers,
100%.
Yeah, it's obvious, like, even
100%.
like, you know, when you sit in church and someone's like on their phone
Yeah.
during a service, like,
Yeah.
you can tell, you
Yeah.
know, what are they like.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you can also smell when someone doesn't shower.
Yeah.
is a red flag. So I've had this conversation with two people recently enough, and they're men, so I can use them as an example, but I'm not going to name their names because I don't need to.
Come
This
on.
idea of men is some people have this idea of keep your options open, meaning that I can talk to her, I can talk to her. You know, I'm just scanning the surface, and I like her, I really like her, but I'm definitely for her. And if you hear that as a woman, that I assume that's a massive off you go, amigo.
Do you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
Okay, so I wouldn't, like, you know, like, first of all, you shouldn't date if you're just dating to date. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not ready to marry someone, like, you shouldn't date. But, like, obviously, you know, marriage is a big commitment,
Yeah.
and you want to be sure you're making the right choice at the same time. So, like, you want to get to know someone, and, like, at some stage, you know, you have to decide, like, okay, would this person be someone that I could spend my life with, etc., that I could glorify God with,
Yeah.
you know, in everything I do. And, like, so I wouldn't be like, oh, you can't keep your options open. Like, it depends on, like, what stage, but, like, you shouldn't close yourself to, like, the first person you meet being like, okay, this is it, like, I'm gonna try and make this work, because it may not work.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, this idea that, like, oh, like, Emma went for coffee with this guy a year ago, so, like, there's no way I could ever talk to him. Like, you know, that's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
that
of
kind of
course.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
And what about then? So, like, not you know, you hear like Mike Todd, and he went on a date, and that was his wife. It was a one date. He won da da da. But then that's not the case for a lot of people. So you'll often, you know, in church, I love the church, but there's a lot of things I don't like, and one of them is that there's this, like, when you hear that someone's gone on a date with multiple people, it's like that person becomes the topic of conversation. The reality is it's a date. You haven't married the person.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
only coffee or lunch or a walk down the river, or, well, hopefully it's
Yeah.
not, hopefully the guy respects the woman enough to not just take her down a walk down a river. I mean, put a bit of
Amen.
thought into it. But with yous, as women, is the idea of, if you hear that a guy's been on 5 or 6 dates within however short a period, a year or 6 months or whatever, is that like, yeah, I'm not going to become just another number on his list? Because for some people, it's a massive red light. Other people, they're so loose with it. It's like, yeah, well, the guy has to date to potentially find his life partner.
If I wanted to go on the
Yeah, if I
date.
want to, and like if I felt like that, like if I was attracted to the guy, or I was like, oh, he's a nice guy, you know, I'll go and see. Because again, like you're saying, like the date isn't like he's not going to propose to you on the date. A
Yeah.
date is a date to kind of get to know the person. It's one-on-one with the person. And if the first date doesn't go well, then that's fine. At least you can say you went on a date and there was no connection, no vibe there.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't think of anyone that, like, to put, like, you know, like a face to it or
Yeah.
something. So it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I think it would be definitely easier if it was someone from, like, you know, a different circle, like a different church, or, like, you know, someone you've seen at, like, Avoca, or, you know, someone that you don't know,
Yeah.
like, you haven't seen them with other people, etc. It would just be a lot easier, because also, yeah, you have that thing of, like, you know, people do talk, like, it doesn't matter what it is, people talk, which
True.
obviously puts a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I'm gonna say no because I don't think this is something that will work out in the future. So you're kind of closing that door before you even know, because there's that thing of like, oh, I'll say yes, and then, you know, like so many people will text me, or like people are going to talk about it, and like it happens so many times. Like we can all say that, you know, where you get a message from someone,
be like, oh, I saw you and someone. And
it's like, what's
the eye
going on
emojis.
there? So I think we're like, in our group, we're a lot kind of close to, like, you would be more close to that.
I agree.
And then I suppose, like, we all talk about it, you know. I think it becomes just a laughing point in most cases. Pickup lines. Has anyone ever, no, be honest, has anyone ever used a pickup line on you? And what is your view on pickup lines? Are they cheesy or are they acceptable?
Okay, I'm going to go first one straight up, because I said this earlier to Patricia. No one has ever used a pickup line on me. And my view of a pickup line, if a guy is going to use a pickup line with me, it means that he can't, no, not can't. I feel like he can't be genuine and have a conversation with me. And you know, he might use a pickup line for him to, like, for me to be like, oh, he wants to go for a coffee or something. Like, just if you're gonna ask me for coffee, ask me for a coffee. Don't be going around the bush about it.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
What about you, Patricia?
I would say no, but I admire the confidence of someone who could go up to you with a pickup line. But also, if there's any advice that like anyone can take from this, is girls talk. So do not use pickup lines, because everyone will hear about it.
Yeah, because I heard there was a pickup line used last weekend, and this person walked up to someone and said, by any chance, are you tired? And your one's like, what? He said, yeah, you've been running around my mind all weekend. And I don't know if there was, I suppose, a genuineness to it. But when I heard it, I was like, I don't.
I admire the confidence of that person going up, and you know, it shows that they're a bit funny. Like, so I'd give them that. But
what happens when your pickup lines run out? You know, Google won't be able to help you in those moments.
It's true.
You know? Right. And here's one for you now, right? So I listen to a lot of podcasts on different topics: sports, poetry, dating, sermons, all that. But there's one podcast I listen to, and it's called The Art of Dating. And on this podcast, there's this thing where her name is Kate, and she talks about this thing of dating the unexpected. And what that means is, you know, naturally we all have like what we're looking for. Like, you know, people say, oh, it's all about personalities. Relax. It's not all about personalities. If you're not physically attracted to that person, you're not going to entertain that person. So let's be real. But she was saying this idea that sometimes we get so boxed into this list of, you know, we want this guy to have washboard abs, walk out of the sea with the comb over hair and all this carry on. I don't believe everyone wants that. I really don't. I think that's rubbish. But would you be up for dating the unexpected? And what do I mean by unexpected? Someone who doesn't fit your so-called criteria. Do you know what I mean? Like, is like an experiment almost? Or would you be closed off to it completely?
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure. Again, I would have to be some sort of attracted to this person.
Fair.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if he's not, like, I don't have a list of like, oh, he needs to be like a pastor, he needs to be leading well, he needs to be doing this, or he needs to be like earning this amount of money. I'm not at all. That they're not my boxes, you know, that kind of way. But I would say maybe, again, if I'm attracted to the person. But then again, I'm at the age where I'm not going to be dating for the sake of dating.
Yeah.
Do you know? So again, I think it's a bit of a tricky one for me personally anyway. I don't know what you think.
I actually think that, and I think this is more maybe for women, but like attraction like that can grow. I do actually think it is possible. Like it's not a relationship worth talking about, but like I dated this guy for a year and a half or so, and like he chased after me for ages, and I was like, no interest whatsoever. And then he left the country, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm heartbroken, like, you know. And like I think people, like, sometimes you don't realize, like, if someone is really like investing their time in you and like, you know, building a friendship and things like that, like I think girls can see attraction in that, like over time. And then things that you thought, like, you know, looking at this person, like, oh my gosh, I could never be attracted to them. They actually, you know, they're the most beautiful person to them. Like, you don't care. So I do think it is possible.
Mm.
Like, it's, again, like I think it's harder now because, like Emma said, you know, she wouldn't date just to date. And like, again, just because, like, you know, there's so many Christian men we know, etc. So it's like, you know, more difficult now maybe. But like, yeah, I would agree that it's you can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wow. And I'm thinking now, right? So obviously, you know, in the Bible, there's loads of love stories, and we all love them. Hosea, Gomer, Ruth, and Boaz, you know, and yeah, there's the sub story of Ruth and Boaz is Ruth and Boaz, Boaz finding Ruth in the
Story is
field.
so weird.
Huh?
I think that story is so weird about Ruth. Sorry.
So and in the story of Ruth and Boaz, interestingly enough, Ruth is the one that pursues Boaz. So naturally you will hear, you know, you'll hear this discussion all the time of the man needs to be the pursuer of the woman, and then some people are for or against it. Are you okay with the guy pursuing you only, or do you think that the woman should be okay to pursue the guy as well?
So I think the guy, but then I'm also like, if you want to text the guy, but don't be the one to always be texting, don't be the one to always go over and engage first. Like, they have to make the effort as well. So
Yeah.
I think my opinion, I think it's on both parts.
Okay.
I'm not going to put it down to the guy all the time because then I feel like that's pressure on them. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, we all know. No, like, we all know many stories of people, like, you know, like Gavin and Judith. Like,
Yeah.
how many times have you heard about Judith telling him that she likes him first,
Yeah.
etc. And like,
Yeah.
you know, we've heard many people like that. So I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, no, you can't, as a girl, approach a guy. You can, like, you can. But I will tell you, like, you know, most girls, they won't want to do it. So
Sure.
because, again, like, and I pity men because there is that fear of like, yeah, I'll talk to that girl and I'll get rejected. And I'm sure guys go through that so often. Like,
Oh yeah.
so often that it must be just so crushing. Like, but it's the same for girls, you know, like, we overthink everything by like 100. So like
1,000.
you wave at a girl and she's like, what does that even mean? Like, kind of thing. So like, it's much more difficult even like for us to do it. And like, yeah, of course you can. And I'm sure, like, I probably have. I don't know about you, Emma. Have you? Yeah, like, we've both done it. But like, the ideal kind of like scenario, like, you know, it would be a guy approaching you, and that's what I think personally. But that doesn't mean it couldn't work out, you know, the other way around.
Yeah, like, and I have, with this topic particularly, I've actually had conversations with guys prior to doing this episode on this particular question, and the common theme that they all seem to respond in a certain way is the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
They said they would much rather be rejected by a text than in person. But then I'm also thinking, like, you know, it's mad how paralyzing that rejection can be. It can knock you back from, you know, people say, oh, just dust off your shoes and get back up. You try that when you get rejected by someone that you're quite attracted to. And see how it goes for you. See what it's like for you the next week or two when you're trying to get up over that hurdle, you know?
I would say, though, I think you're also less likely to get rejected in person than you are over a message. Because when you see a message, you're like, okay, like, and again, girls think like so much. So like, I see that and I'm like, okay, but like, you know, 10 years down the line, like, what's going to happen there? And like, things like that. So you have more time to think about it. But when you go up to someone in person, it's like, okay, like, you know, I see you all the time, and I see you serving, and I see you do this, and like, yeah, like there's no reason for me to say no, kind of thing, you know. So I would say that as a bit of encouragement, but I do get it, like it must feel really bad to be rejected. But again, there's that level of like respect, and like I've never heard anyone in church, especially like, because you know we're talking about like church circles, really, like having someone come up to them and like say no, and then be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy asked, like, you know, you would be really kind about it as well. Like it's not something like personally I probably, you know, wouldn't share with other people, or you know. So I think there's also that idea, like guys think that like, you know, like will scream at you or make you cry kind of thing. Like I honestly, like, I don't know any girl that I'm friends with that wouldn't be kind about it, you know, if she was to say no. So
that's why I think, well, no, statistics prove it. That's why there's been a massive in the last I would say probably the last 5-6 years, and I think COVID has definitely helped enable the fact that dating apps are now gone skyrocketing through the roof, because people have had 2 years without face-to-face connection with people, so they've lost 2 years of their potential dating life. And I suppose, like, with dating apps, you know, I've no problem with them. If it works for people, great. But obviously you connect with someone, then it's like, hey, how are you doing? And then the whole purpose of that connection is you want to take the person on a date, because through text you can't really get to know the person. I don't think you can anyway. I think it's better when it's face-to-face interaction, where you don't have to wait for them to respond. Or so what I'm going to ask you, and I'm asking you because we want to help the men out, okay? And I'm saying that like I'm a pro. I'm not. I'm a single guy, happy enough to explore the unknown waters. But what are like some examples of an ideal date? How to help the guys out? If a guy hits you up and he's taking you on a date, and you want to help him out, what sort of ideas are you giving him?
I suppose I've shared this with Patricia before. So if I'm talking to a guy, and obviously they'd be like, oh, you know, where's your favorite place to eat? Or, you know, like they might ask kind of questions like, what's your favorite thing to do?
Yeah.
And then I would like, if they took into consideration that, oh, she likes this restaurant, let's bring her there. Do you know, that they've thought about the conversation we've had. That's my own.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, because a big part of like an ideal date is like you wanting to be on that date. So if we're not talking about like, okay, like I'm gonna get coffee with this person, like it's an actual date. For me personally, like I get quite nervous, so I really like doing things like, you know, kind of like
activities or whatever.
Yeah, going to the beach. Like I can go to the beach with someone over having dinner, and not, you know, that's something so simple, but like, you know, I lived on a ship, so for me, like that's a big part of my life, and like things like that, like adventurous things, and yeah, like things that are kind of like there's thought in it. Like I don't know, like I don't like the cinema personally, but I know Emma likes going to the cinema. So yeah.
Here's one for you, right? If a guy asks a girl out, you know, and he's like, hey, you want to hang out, but he doesn't specify the word date in inverted commas, hang out, meet up, get to know you better, is that instantly a date, or does the guy have to be incredibly specific about the wording of that invitation?
I would straight up just ask him, like, is this a friends or what?
Yeah, I can. So,
because I feel like I know girls, like we can, I don't know, me personally before in the past, I would have read into things too much.
Yeah.
And then I would have gotten feelings, and then he would be like, oh no, it was just friends, but I'm like, you've never.
Yeah, like be specific.
Yeah.
Like
if it's friends,
can I take you out? Like, can I bring you for a cup of coffee? You seem really interesting. Like, be like, say what your intentions are. And if those aren't your intentions, like then say that, you know, or like, you know, because like again, like we think so much like into things. Like
gonna get married there to this person in 2 years time.
Yeah. So
then
like
it's just a friend
and
thing.
like all girls do that. Like just be specific about your intentions. Even like, you know, if you're friends with someone, for a long time, or like, you know, look, I know we talk a lot, but I actually want to be friends, or maybe I would like to get to know you. Like, be specific about what your intentions are. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked that is because last November I was at a wedding, right? A dear friend got married, enjoyed it. Music was savage. I was throwing shapes on the dance floor, having the time of my life, right? And someone came along and they're showing quite a bit of interest. And I was like, okay, I was entertaining the interest and walked up to the person and said, hey, how are you? Started talking to him, shared her testimony. I shared mine and I asked her for her number. She put her number into my phone. We began the process of talking. And then a week and a half later, I said, hey, I would love to take you out for dinner. She said, yeah, absolutely. So I went up to Dublin. What I thought was a date to her was just a mate date, which I didn't know was a thing. So that's why I ask it, because for me, when I ask someone to meet up, hang out, and it's a girl one-on-one, like if I don't like you, I'm not going to ask you for a meet up or hang out one-on-one. I don't see the point in it. So that's why I asked that, because mate dates are not dates. It's stupid. It's pointless.
But then some guys then would probably just like, oh no, I just want to hang out with the girl. Do you know what I mean? So again, like Patricia was saying, I think it's just very important just to be specific. Set it down the line, because like girls do catch feelings very quickly. You know? So I think like down the line it's just best to just.
I think it works both ways.
Like, straight up,
I think, and like this sounds bad now, but like there is like girls would probably also like, they like the idea of having like male friends because it's someone that you can like chat to about other things. You know, if you need help with something, they might offer, kind of thing. But like, you don't want to go past that friendship. And I'm not saying it's like a good thing, but like, you know, that's what probably happened there as well, kind of thing. Although you didn't know her, so
So you talked about male friends, right? And I can't resist, but I'm going to ask this question. Once a guy gets into friend zone, can he escape?
What do you mean escape? Like get out of
like he naturally didn't intend to end up in the friend zone. He naturally wanted to date the girl or end up with the girl, and then she's just liked the idea of having her around, so she puts him in the friend zone. Is that her way of saying you're a great guy, but there's no potential here, or is it it's like a waiting room to see if her feelings for you develop? You're laughing, but it's true, right? It's like,
I think, and we talked about this earlier, like they can develop, and I think like a lot of relationships start like that. So I don't know like if there's a rule, but like it is like, they can, I think personally, but they may not also. I think, I don't know, a lot of the times, like, by the way, like someone talks to you, or like, how intentional they are or things like that. Like, well, you should know whether there's potential there or not, because there's going to be things like, oh, someone will come along and be like, oh, but I'm this and that, so you said this, so if I ask you out you should say yes, kind of thing. That may not always be the case as well. Like, you should know from the way you speak to someone, like, they would be open.
So, and you said something there, Patricia, and I want to ask you this, right? And Emma as well, right? We talk a lot about intentionality, being upfront, being honest, telling her, wording it such a way. I've heard it said, though, to me, that if you wear your heart on your sleeve, you're setting yourself up for failure, in the sense that you're too intentional, so it comes across as like needy but I don't see it that way. I think if a guy's being intentional, he's going to be upfront with you and lay an invitation on the table, essentially, and see if you want to take the bait, for lack of a better term. Do you think a guy can be too intentional? Is that a thing, or?
I've never met a guy that was too intentional, so I don't.
I suppose too upfront, too early, if that makes sense. Like the guy literally, like you've met him and he's just pure like.
I think there's people that are quite intense.
There you go.
More than intentional. Like, if we've met once and then you say hello and then you say hello the next day and the next day, like that kind of intentional, it's very intense. And I think that can be too much. you know, someone sending you like love hearts emojis, like things like that. Like,
Stop it.
like I think that's too much.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's kind of what you were
But
asking.
I suppose that's what I was in a roundabout way. That's what it is. Kind of guy be too intense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because then I wonder, for as a guy, I often know myself, like there's this tendency to where you don't open up enough, so therefore you feel like you have to be so upfront, but it comes across as intense. But you don't mean it to come across as intense. You're just trying to open yourself up to the girl to let her know that you're very interested. So yeah, it's an interesting one to navigate because you're either too intense or not intense enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah. But I want to, as a way to wrap it up, I want to ask one final question, and this final question is going to help the guys, right? So to all my single men out there, right? The guys are at home, they're scrolling through Instagram and they're seeing girls or whatever, a couple of girls in their church where they're like, yeah, she could potentially be like my root, you know. We keep saying root because I've got the Bible in front of me open on the chapter Gospel of Root, or Gospel of Root, the book of Root. But right, I'm gonna rephrase this question this way. A guy wants to approach a girl that he likes. He's thought about it in his head because we're like you, we think about it all the time up here. We have plan A to plan Z worked out before you even know it. Help a guy out. What are some healthy and respectful ways that a guy can approach a girl that he's potentially interested in? No pressure. You know what I'm trying to say, don't you?
I think, yeah, I think it varies. Like, you know, I think it's different. Like, I think before you, like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I've seen this person in church, but I've never spoken to them in person, so I'm just gonna go up and ask them out. Like, I don't think that's kind of appropriate. Like, we live in a world where things are quite, like, you know, dangerous, and like not everyone that goes to church is a Christian, and like, so you want to be really careful. But if there's someone, like, you know, in your young adults group, etc., that, you know, you've had group conversations with, and you know about like, yeah, go up to them, you know, and just ask them, would they like to go for coffee with you, etc. I don't think you can go wrong in that. Like, no, I don't. But if you're like, you know, your first night in church or whatever, and you're like, oh, Emma's good looking, so I'm just gonna go up and like ask her out, like she's gonna say no.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, so because
you
said,
have to know
like,
some part of the person. You need to know,
yeah. And again, like, you know, from those conversations and stuff, like in groups, like you will know, you know, this person is more likely to say yes, or you know, things like that. I wouldn't be like searching for people on Instagram and then, because you mentioned that, and then like, going up to them in person if you don't know them, because they're more likely to say no.
Agreed. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
I've really enjoyed this conversation because I'm all about simplifying this awkwardness of dating that everyone has to walk through at some stage in their life, right? And I've enjoyed the conversation, and I think you both have, well, no, you've brought a woman's perspective, which is so helpful. It seems so simple. You just make it sound so easy. I'm not joking. You actually, like, you literally have laid it out, but yet the lads are going to listen to this and go, yeah, you make it look so easy. Do you know? Because again, it comes back to that putting yourself out there. But my encouragement to the guys in closing, not that I'm an expert in this field by any means, but it really is like when you step out to approach that girl, you're stepping out from a place of knowing your affirmation and acceptance in Jesus first and foremost, so that rejection is not personal. It's just that she may not be attracted to you. She may be in a season of, I don't know, focusing on studying or whatever. Like there's different things, there's different reasoning. So don't take the rejection personal. But thank you both so much for giving up of your time. I have truly enjoyed just being able to pick your brains, you know, on this. And I look forward to just, I suppose, hearing in ways that this podcast has been a help to the guys if they speak up. But thank you so much, girls. You're both legends. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are listening, thank you for tuning in. But do me a favor, right? If this podcast episode has been a help to you in any way, no, I'm not looking for money, so relax. Reach out to myself or to the girls and let them know particularly how you've encouraged them. And it may sound cheesy or cringy. Don't shoot your shot, because if you shoot your shot with my sister, I'll find out and I'll have a cup of coffee with you myself. You know, but let them know how you've encouraged them, because oftentimes we think like, oh, their head will get too big. No, God will keep them humble. Encouragement is important. And I hope that this was in some way of a help to you that are listening. Go forth, trust God with your dating life, however that looks. Don't be afraid to shoot your shot and trust God with it. But till next time, don't forget that hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you next week. Take care. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with me, Jerry D. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're tuning into it from. This greatly helps to spread the word about the podcast, but also to encourage other people to check it out for themselves. Until next week, take care, God bless, and don't forget, hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. Take care.